The Houston Texans had a Texas-sized issue with their offensive line last year, but maybe one of Texas's finest could fix it. A mock draft from Lance Erline from the NFL Network gave us a pretty intriguing idea for the Houston Texans to help their offensive line, not only in the present, but also in the future. What if life after Laremy was also a consideration for the Houston Texans in the upcoming draft? Let's get to Lance Erline's mock draft and see what kind of crazy idea he came up with. And I say crazy in that it might be crazy enough to work. So here's the mock draft: Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, there's Cam Ward, and we can scroll through all of these. Hey, look, the Jaguars, they get a wide receiver. They do exactly what I would do, which is draft Ted McMillan from Arizona. And then the Colts, they go out there and they get an offensive lineman, the offensive lineman that I like in this draft, Tyler Booker from Alabama. So when are the Texans on the board, Cody? What you're saying is, well, they're not at 25. They're coming up right after Mike Green gets picked by the Atlanta Falcons. 16th overall, the Houston Texans on the board. A trade with the Arizona Cardinals to get Kelvin Banks Jr. from the University of Texas. He's been one of their standout offensive linemen for a few years. Had a great battle back in the day with Will Anderson at Texas. Bama had a great battle with Will Anderson back in the day. So, the Texans can pick Will Anderson's brain a little bit about what Banks can bring to the table. And Banks has been really good for the Longhorns for the past few seasons, and Lance predicts a trade up to 16 to get Kelvin Banks Jr. Texans in win now mode, trade up to get a player who improves the protection at guard year one before eventually bouncing out to take a tackle spot. Now, it's a two-part plan, one that helps you in 2025 and then one that helps you down the road. Look, the Houston Texans have got the plan for life after Laremy Tunsil. Tunsil is one of the most expensive pieces of the organization right now, and he'll continue to be expensive going forward. Tunsil's contract and what he gets paid, there's never going to be a hometown discount associated with it. That's not how Laremy Tunsil operates. He's not going to give the Texans a financial break. He's never come close to giving them a financial break. So when you pay Will Anderson and CJ Stroud and Derek Stingley and Nico Collins is on his new contract, you've got to make some sacrifices at other parts of the team, and moving on from Laremy Tunsil in the future is something the Texans should be planning for. They should have a succession plan for that tackle spot. Now, maybe it's Blake Fisher, who eventually could play left tackle, or maybe it'd be something like this: Kelvin Banks from the University of Texas. Helps you with the guard spot in 2025. Helps solidify the offensive line, and heck, could play guard for 2 years, which is exactly how much Laremy Tunsil has left on his contract from a year standpoint. So Banks plays guard for a couple of years for you. By that time, big money starts to hit the salary cap from CJ Stroud and Will Anderson and Derek Stingley. And then all of a sudden, Laremy walks in free agency, and Banks slides out to left tackle to help solve something for the Houston Texans. Sounds like a pretty good plan. It's just a very costly plan, and I don't know that it maximizes and benefits the 2025 season. If the Texans indeed are all in 2025, and there may need to be a little bit of a reset in 26 or 27, I don't know that Banks and trading up for Banks makes a ton of sense. They've got a lot of things that they need to address. They've got offensive line issues, but also wide receiver issues. They've got some things over on defense where they could use some starters like defensive tackle. They need to add some depth. And while you wouldn't be drafting a depth player in the first round, you would be drafting a depth player with draft picks that you would maybe have to give up to get this player from the Cardinals pick at 16. Plus, one more thing about the mock draft from Lance. Kelvin Banks available at 16. My favorite player in the draft available at 17, and Lance doesn't take him for the Texans. Come on. If you're trading up for anybody, trade up for this monster. Trade up for Tyler Warren. But here's another thing about the Kelvin Banks situation and trading up for a guard. Do you really want a rookie settling into the offensive line position and helping out this offensive line in 2025, don't you kind of prefer a veteran, even if that veteran is expensive? And again, think about it. If the veteran's expensive and you've got a plan for no Tunsil, well, this guy's not going to be as expensive, whatever veteran you sign, as Laremy Tunsil. So maybe you could find a Tunsil solution down the road, or maybe you could just worry about the Tunsil situation in a couple of years. You've got to win in 2025. And making this trade to go up there and get Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas would be a costly one. It is expensive to move up in the draft. Nick Caserio knows it very well from his time moving up to go get Will Anderson. And this would be a pretty expensive draft to move up in, especially if you're moving up from 25 to 16. Just to look at the value chart, the draft value chart. Now, Bill Belichick said a couple years ago, everybody kind of uses the same chart. This chart that I use from Draft Tech is pretty good, and I think it gives a pretty good summary. And based on the way Nick Caserio has operated in the past, it's pretty close to maybe how he views things. And so you're looking at this, and the 16th overall pick is worth 1,000 points, and the 25th overall pick is worth 720. And so to get there, you've got to add 280 in value. So to add 280 in value, well, it's not super easy to do, but it's very doable. But what are you going to do? Is it going to be just simply the second round pick, which is 320? And then you get something back from the Cardinals, like, say, maybe their third round pick, which is like 100 or so points. So 320 plus 720, so the Cardinals lose out a little bit on that, but they get a second round pick and still keep their first round pick. But let's say it is indeed that second round pick, and that's 320 points. You're going to take your first and second round pick and move up for a guard that maybe one day can play tackle for you just to make that happen. Like, if this was what it costs to get Kelvin Banks, I'm comfortable just doing something else at the guard position. I'm comfortable with drafting a different player who actually is a guard to play guard. I don't want to spend a first and second round pick to go up to 16 to get Kelvin Banks Jr. That kind of ruins my ability to go out there and get a big-time defensive tackle who maybe fell, a wide receiver. It hurts my ability in the third round to go and get a running back to back up Joe Mixon and eventually take over for him. That becomes kind of a luxury pick. Even if I got the third round pick from the Cardinals, or even if I swapped third round picks from the Cardinals to kind of make it even, still feels pretty costly to move all the way up to 16 for a guard when you could spend money on a guard in free agency. And no, that doesn't solve your tackle problem long term. Tomorrow's problems are tomorrow, though. Today's problems are, you've got to figure out the guard situation, and you've got to add talent in other parts of this team. And this trade up, to me, doesn't do it. It's far too expensive for the Houston Texans, though I do think figuring out a succession plan for life after Laremy is super important. I don't know that this makes the most sense for the Houston Texans, and I don't know that this is the right all-in move. The right all-in move would be spending a little money in free agency and then drafting a different player, staying put at 25, or if a big-time game changer started to slip, you go up and get them, like a big-time game changer, a defensive tackle, or a wide receiver that you really like Matthew Golden out of Texas. Hey, the wrong Texas player there. But I don't love this. I wouldn't do this if I was the Houston Texans. Would you do this if you were the Houston Texans? Let me know in the comment section down below on your way down there. Throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out Houston football. I'll learn the pointing here in a minute. Check out SNL with myself and Landry Locker from the Locker Room. Got a ton of fun stuff this week, getting you ready for free agency, which is just a few days away. Next Monday is when it really gets going, so you don't want to miss out on that. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.